One essential truth of travel is we don't know what to look for until we find it. The first time I accompanied my wife to Paris, I knew she would want to see the Louvre and the Eiffel Tower and the Chateau at Versailles. Who wouldn't? But I also knew, even before we arrived, that probably her most indelible memory would be of some backstreet bistro that isn't listed in any guidebook and that none of our friends know about. Somewhere we could really imagine we had discovered ourselves. The definition of a life-changing trip is one that takes you by surprise and that takes on a life of its own, just as any lasting relationship does. But you can place yourself in its sights by the destination you choose, by the way you approach that destination, and of course, by what you bring to it. When you're choosing a destination, think of what you don't have enough of in your regular life. It could be rest, it could be difficulty, it could be stimulation. What is most distant from your day-to-day experience? If you're in an office 50 weeks of the year, you may just want to go and crash out on a beach for your 2 weeks of vacation. But even if you do, why not choose a beach in Oman or Thailand rather than one in Hawaii? It'll be much more culturally rich, more unexpected, much further from what you know. If you're somebody like me and spend too much of your life flying around, you might choose to go on a meditation retreat. Or if you're living in a big city, try Iceland or Wyoming. And when you're thinking about activities, maybe whitewater rafting or watching soccer, museum going, recall that an ordinary activity in an extraordinary place may become something remarkable. A professional soccer game in Rio is going to be much less predictable than the one in Rome. A museum in Saigon may teach you more about your recent history than any museum in Washington, D.C. could do. Parallel to that very crowded street that's leading to the Golden Temple is a much quieter, more atmospheric lane that will take you to a temple that very few people know about. The silent backstreet alone may transform you more than any beautiful Buddha statue. I happen to spend most of my regular life in my little apartment here in Japan and in my mother's house in California. Very comfortable, settled places. So when I go on holiday, I like to seek out uncomfortable, unsettled places. I know that Haiti or Varanasi will turn me around much more than Vancouver could. Sometimes all of us get more from meeting some wild-eyed prophet in a disheveled coat than from hanging out with a supermodel. Jerusalem is probably nobody's idea of somewhere calm or reassuring or forgotten, but there are few places more likely to change your life in one direction or another, or maybe in many directions all at once. Of course, our budgets are not limitless, but that doesn't have to be a limitation. You can live for 2 weeks in endlessly surprising Laos for the same amount you would spend in 2 days in not-so-exotic Singapore. When I went on retreat, I was asked to pay $150 a week for a beautiful cabin above the sea with its own kitchen and showers, 3 meals a day included. You could stay 3 months in a perfectly comfortable hotel for the same price as a week in a luxury resort. And those 3 months are much more likely to change you forever. I usually travel on quite a limited budget, but often I'll spend one night in some rock-bottom place and one night in a rather comfortable establishment. If you stay only in backpacker guest houses, it can limit your experience as much as staying only in a 6-star hotel. So shake yourself up. One of the secrets of travel is that you often learn and experience far more from things going wrong than from everything going according to plan. When you're mapping out your itinerary, I would recommend being sure to leave blank space every day, just to rest, to collect your thoughts, to hang out with new friends, maybe even to get lost. 2 events every day can transform you more than 22. If you're traveling with friends or in a group, as you may often want to do, make sure you have 2 or 3 hours every day, if possible, to be alone, to digest everything you're seeing, maybe to go somewhere on your own, to recharge yourself. Also, I think to give yourself a sense of agency and independence. I tend not to rely much on other travelers' reports because the chicken dish they love may not really be to my taste, or they may love orange where I like blue. Instead, what I'll try to do is read novels or see movies that are set in New Orleans or Kenya to give me a sense of what to seek out when I arrive, how to get the most of any encounter, what kind of place is awaiting me. And try to think about how you will end your journey. Psychologists have found that the end of any experience is disproportionately important to how you remember it. And if you've had a difficult trip for 2 weeks and a wonderful last 2 days, you'll always cherish it as a wonderful trip. I should end by saying my most meaningful trips have ultimately come from following intuition. In my early 30s, I started going to Cuba again and again, and also to North Korea. Neither was very comfortable, neither was on many American itineraries in those days, but they taught me about the Cold War. They showed me how the country where I lived was seen on the far side of the world, sometimes too rosily, sometimes too aggressively. And they taught me about the human and cultural sides of places that too often are seen only in a political context. And of course, in Cuba, as in Iran or Vietnam, if you do go there as an American, you're going to receive more invitations to dinner, more attention, even more marriage proposals than you know what to do with. Much later, however, as I thought back on my trips to those 2 places, I realized that there was something deeper at play. I'd grown up in California, surrounded by many people who belonged to intentional communities or spiritual groups. And going to these rather closed societies, Cuba and North Korea, was really my way of trying to sort through my thoughts and feelings about my friends and much of my past, to see them through a kind of semi-objective lens. That wasn't at all what I had in mind when I bought the ticket. I was just following curiosity. But after I returned to the US, I realized that subconsciously I'd sought out places very far from home as a way to think through issues that were very close to home. Curiosity is never so random as we imagine.